guys, welcome back to Everyday Off-Road. Today is the finale of the stretch. Now I know I've got a lot of explaining to do on why you had no film updates from when we finished the front long arm to now when the Jeep is complete. Main answer to that is we have a 4-month-old. The beginning of 2025 has been possibly the craziest few months we've ever had. Nothing, really bad or anything. It's just both of us work full-time jobs. We've got the 4-month-old. My dad went in for heart surgery a week ago or so now. So just way too much work involved in this stretch for me to live a normal life, get the Jeep done, help buddies with what they need, and still be able to sleep at night. So I apologize for the lack of updates throughout this build, but the premise of today's video will be going through step by step everything that we did to this thing. So without further ado, I hope you're excited to see it. Came out great. I'll spin the camera around and we will do a full walk around on our new stretched 100-inch wheelbase TJ. All right, guys, so here she sits. Full rock crawler long arm stretch suspension. Same wheels and tires, obviously. Everything's the same. But we are sitting at 100 inches. Mostly due to everything back here that we'll talk about in a second. But I just wanted to do a walk around on the Jeep just to show this thing off. So first things first, I'm sure you saw part 1 and 2 where we did the rock crawler center section and the front 3-link long arm. That was all just really in preparation for what we did out back. So a little bit of basics on the Jeep for anybody that may be new to the channel. We're on a 4-inch suspension lift. I've got Curry springs. We were on a 4-inch Curry short arm. We are now on rock crawler long arm links with their center section, their front 3-link, and their rear triangulated 4-link. So we're still around that 4 inches of lift height or so, which is what I like on a TJ. Was happy with the height overall, didn't really want to change that. Up front, just a quick synopsis on what we did. We added the double shear track bar from Clayton. Obviously the front 3-link eliminated that passenger side. There, you can barely see it. The upper link on the passenger side got eliminated, leaving you with 3 links, which with the track bar makes that a 4-link system up front compared to the factory 5-link. So a lot more articulation we can get out of the front up here. In the front we're running the Curry Rock Motobuilt bumper, Warren VR Evo with some Factor 55 goodies, running the Curry Correct Link steering with the Black Magic brakes, solid chromoly 4340 tie rod, along with the PSC Hydro Assist there. RCV axles, Fusion Dana 44. So that's pretty much what we got up front. Coming around to the premise of the video, we are now about 5.5 inches longer in the rear, and I managed to squeeze about a 1/2 inch forward out of the front, putting us right at 100 inches, which was my goal for this project. So first things first, obviously to move the axle back, we had to do the rock crawler long arm links. I got on the phone with rock crawler, it's been almost a year ago now, and had them custom make these links. They don't make these anymore. They make the new arched links for the flat belly systems. I wanted the old school links. I know they work. I know plenty of people that have had them. And with the older style center section, that's what I needed clearance wise as well. So these are roughly 5 inches longer. than if you were to order a stock length rock crawler long arm. So just try to squeeze the camera up in here. You can see, there they are. The upper links triangulate to the top of the diff. Rock crawler truss on the rear fusion axle that got welded on. The triangulation comes out from that truss and goes forward, and I'm not sure if you can see this or not, they connect to the center section, the frame rails of the rock crawler center section. That completes the rear triangulated four-link, 2 lowers, 2 uppers. Adams came through as always with a custom length rear drive shaft. Not only is mine custom length, it's got to have a custom mounting system as well, because I have the 241 Rubicon case, so we needed a flange mounting surface on that end and a standard 1310 yoke on the other end. You could just order a custom length Rubicon shaft, but that end on a Rubicon is a 1330, and so we had to get on the phone with them and make sure they got what we needed, and as usual it came out perfect. So Adams rear drive shaft, if you're doing this stretch or something similar, my drive shaft came out to be about 22 inches long at ride height, which is about 5.5 inches longer than my other Tom Woods shaft was that I had on before. While we're under here looking at the exhaust, you can see it clears the skid plate fine. We did a little bit of custom exhaust work. I'll walk around to the other side and talk a little bit more about that before we get into what else went into this stretch, because it was a ton of work. So we hit on the exhaust in video 1 for just a minute, but it turned out to work fine. We had no more modifications to make, so I went ahead and threw some nasty looking weld on there and finalized it. Basically all we had to do is cut out the third catalytic converter, which on the newer TJs you've got 2 pre-cats up near the headers, and then it comes into one pipe. And right in this area there used to be a big catalytic converter. Well, we had clearance problems with the rock crawler bracket, so we eliminated that, put a piece of straight pipe in, and kept our MagnaFlow Off-Road Pro muffler. And if you come to the back side, you can see the muffler tucked up in there nicely. Everything clears, and then kind of had to mess with our turn down a little bit and cut the little mounting thing off of it, and it clears the 3-link fine as well. So that's pretty much all we had to do for the exhaust, just eliminate the third cat and weld in a piece of straight pipe. There's another shot of the Adams drive shaft and the rock crawler 3-link, the 4-link uppers. Not too much else going on the axle end. Like I said, the main deal was getting the truss welded on, axle painted. The Fusion had 1/4-inch bracketry. Cutting all of the 1/4-inch brackets off for the short arms was by far the worst part of this whole project. So if you have a stock axle, it should not be quite as bad. But there's an under view of the rock crawler 4-link. Everything else just kind of bolted back up where I had it. We'll look at brake lines in a minute. Locker plugs in right there above the diff, just like I had it before. And way back in the back, you can see the Genrite tank tucked up in there nicely, which we'll hit on that in a second as well. On the subject of gas tanks, we chose to keep the tank under the Jeep. And what better way to do that than Genrite's crawler tank. This one holds the factory amount of fuel, which is I believe 19 or 19.5 gallons. And it tucks up in here, looks super clean, supposed to give you another inch of clearance. I can't really tell to the eye, but I'll believe them on that. Not sure how well you can see. There we go. Look how close that clearance is back there. I'll try to throw a picture in somewhere in here. Showing the at full stuff how close that is, but you could not get any more stretch out of this system with that Genrite tank. So ours was about 5.5 inches. If you have a lower profile truss or a stock diff cover, you could get 6 inches, but that is about all you can get with this tank. which we knew that going in. Our goal was not to be super long because I like the look of factory TJ. As you can probably tell from the video intro, I wanted it to look just like it did before, but a little more wheelbase. So here you can see what we did with the brake lines. That soft line is all that we changed for the brake line, and it runs up to the frame and connects in the factory spot. That is an LJ line from Terraflex, and that is all I had to do brake line wise. Obviously I had to pull the hard lines off the axle to do all the cutting and welding, but they went back pretty similar to how they were from the factory. The only thing I really had to buy for the brakes is this new this new soft line from Terraflex, which I think the stock TJ line was like 17, 18 inches, and this one says it was 26, so may actually be a little too long, but with how much droop we have back here, if anything, that'll work in our favor. So that's it for brakes. Kept the factory parking brake cables. I say factory, the ones that came from Fusion with the axle. They work fine, literally nothing required there. And I think that's it on the axle end. I went ahead and welded the sway bar tabs back on, but we are not going to run a sway bar for now since we have an anti-rock up front, and see what the body roll is like. I drooped the rear end out, and with the factory sway bar on, it was limiting us pretty bad. Wasn't getting near as much droop as this system is known to give you, so I removed that. Really the only other option is if we get too much body roll, to do an anti-rock in the rear, which those are not cheap, so hopefully this will work for us. So next item of work on the rear we will hit on is what all had to go into the frame. So pretty much from here back is all new. Original frame, obviously. I didn't do anything to the frame other than cut the factory brackets off, paint it, and clean it up. But this plate that you can see here is a Barnes four-wheel drive stretch plates. It moves your coil perch back really however much you want it, up to probably 9 or 10 inches, which is about all you can stretch and keep coil springs. So that's from Barnes. It moved our coils back 5 inches. And these are Curry coils. Again, everything suspension wise we had before was Curry, so I just kept the coils. Next thing you'll obviously notice is the shocks got outboarded. We kept Bilsteins, but I needed a new Bilstein. Obviously the ones we had were about 9.5, 10 inches of travel. These are 12-inch travel Bilsteins. There's your part number, 33-185-569. The towers we went with are Poly Performance. That grade 8 screw you see coming through there is just what holds the front of the Genrite tank in. So came out really clean. I'm happy with the way the shocks look, and it rides really, really good on the road. I can't wait to see what it does on the trail. So on the bottom end, we did a little bit different than a lot of people, I guess, would do. They get the poly towers. That is not a poly lower bracket. That is a Motobuilt bracket. The poly bracket, due to the thick 1/4 inch lower link mounts that came on the Fusion, I could not get them to get positioned where I wanted. So basically we were getting some interference. Just couldn't get them located left to right on the axle where we needed them to make the shocks work. So having Motobuilt 2 hours from the house, I ordered these the night before, and they got here the next day. So that shock bracket is a Motobuilt bracket. The welds on the shock brackets on the axle end are not beautiful, nor is the back of the truss. But I was not going for pretty on that. I was going for strength, so ran multiple beads down everything on that truss, hoping that it performs well. You don't see it. So spent a little more time on the welds on the shock mounts. That's a pretty good looking weld. all around there. That one came out really pretty as well for somebody that has welded for 3 months. But, so that is how we got most of the stretch. I mean, this Barnes kit and outboarding the shocks really is it on the frame side. Obviously, other than no longer have a track bar, and the factory coil perch was somewhere in here, gave you that banana shaped coil. All that got cut off and moved back, and now our coils sit perfectly up and down. Last thing I'll hit on, hope the wind noise isn't destroying you. We've got a chance of tornadoes actually today, pretty bad, so hopefully we don't get blown away before I finish the video. Obviously, I hope you noticed that this pretty much looks like it did before. I mean, when you see this thing, you don't instantly think mega stretched TJ to where it looks like a buggy. This thing really looks factory, and the reason for that is all this Motobuild armor. This is their 4-inch stretch rockers. Yeah, we're stretched 5.5 inches, so I had to clearance them in the back slightly. So I got them in, put the tire on once I got the suspension set up how I like it, and cycled. And where the tire was hitting, I had to clearance out the Motobuild armor, which turned out to be just about a 1/2 inch or so. Next thing I'll point out, the stretch corners from Motobuild. These are the fender flares that we had on before. I'll kind of get a close-up here and let you see what we did. We had to trim those out. And previously, the bottom of this came out to about where my finger is. Had a lot more extra, not even sure what you'd call that, but it matched the factory wheel arch. So you can tell where we had to cut because we had to barely clip through the Motobuild right there. We clearanced this whole fender out to match what we trimmed on the corner armor, and I think it came out really nice. You can't even really tell that it's not supposed to be this way. Come around to the other side. Similar thing, you can see we barely got into the Motobuild on this side too. So I trimmed the corner armor first, got it set up with the tire, making sure it would clear at full bump. And I bolted the fender flare on and pretty much went behind here with a Sharpie and marked on the back side of the fender flare, which was hanging out to here. So I marked the body line from the new corner armor, took the flare back off and cut it with a angle grinder. Managed to get a pretty good looking arc. I was worried that they would come out kind of jagged looking, but it looks fine. Paint wise, we obviously chose to paint match our khaki PJC paint code like it comes from the factory. Steve Talley at Cahaba Collision in Birmingham, Alabama painted these things for me, and I think this paint is better than the Jeep came with right off the assembly line. This paint job is unreal. Not a single piece of trash or blurry spot or anything in that paint. It is perfect, and it matches awesome. So big shout out to Steve over at Cahaba Collision. If you're in Central Alabama and need anything painted, you cannot beat this. So please go see him if you need something. I mean, look at the match. That's my factory tailgate, and obviously this is not a factory Motobuild piece, but it came out absolutely perfect. Another thing I did, we used to have the tag over here wrapped around the tub corner. It could still have fit on the tub corner, but I did not want to drill through the 3/16 just to wrap a tag around there, and it may have hit the flare right here, because that flare almost starts to separate from that tub line there. But so we moved the tag to the tailgate with the Motobuild tag bracket, cleaned that up really nice, covers the vent that's inlets and the tailgates. This really ties the back end together nice. Really happy with the armor and the way the look came out on this thing. It's exactly what I wanted, as far as keeping the thing kind of factory TJ looking. But look at that departure angle now. If we didn't have the Barnes bumper on, that distance right there from the back of the tub to the back of the tire is about 2 inches. So really happy with our new wheelbase. People say 100 inches on these TJs is perfect, so let's try it out and see what we think. For the evap, those of you with, I'm not sure when it starts, I think it's 03 and up, so 03, 04, 05, and 06 have a huge charcoal canister in here that would stick out and actually get in the way of this shock tower if it was still in here. So we eliminated the charcoal canister thanks to the guys from the Facebook forum for the advice on that one. That was really something that I did not know what I wanted to do when I started this project. I just took it all out and got the stretch done and then figured it out at the end. Eliminated the charcoal canister. As you can see, it's kind of hard to tell back in here. I've got it all tucked up and secured out of the way. This deal here is part of your evap that you have to keep because it's got some sensors and wires running to it. I'm not sure exactly what it is. I think part of this is a purge canister, maybe that part. But this line right here that comes out of this big canister used to go into your charcoal canister, and then another line came back out of the charcoal box and went back into this. And what you do is just bypass it. You loop this straight back to itself, plugs in here, and that goes down into the Genrite gas tank. Genrite does a good job of sending you all the valves and everything already attached to the tank to plug in your evap, so you get no codes or anything when you fire the Jeep up. And this is the 3rd or 4th time that I've taken the Jeep out for a drive. Still no engine light or anything due to not having a charcoal canister, so I think we are good there. Doesn't look super pretty right there. I wish I could make something that kind of covers that up, but it is tucked way back behind the shock tower, and in reality you don't even see it. So that's how we handled the evap. This is all you need. You don't need the charcoal box. So I tucked all that back up in there, plugged it in, and we are rolling with it. So glad that worked out. The one last thing I wanted to cover is filler neck. Obviously, we do not have a fuel filler neck and a cap in the tub anymore. That is gone. For a filler neck, we went with the Genrite aluminum billet, whatever, filler neck. Looks like it's very well made, as most of their stuff is. I wish it was lower priced, but is what it is to get a quality part. You can barely get a gas nozzle back in here when you're at the pump, but it does work, and it keeps that nice, clean, and tucked up out of the way back there as far as filling up with gas. So that's where we fill up with gas. Like I said, you kind of have to grab your handle at the pump and come in here sideways to get back to that, but it works well. It's not like this is our daily driver, so we fill it up with gas maybe once a month. So that kind of tied all the fuel system together back there, and you can barely even see that. Keeps the Jeep really clean looking, which, if you know me, I like stuff to look clean. Just an under Jeep view of the links. There's where your uppers come in, and obviously your beefy lowers. And they both run out. Your lower connects in the stock location, your uppers come together and tie to the truss. All right, guys, so there it is. We're at 100 inches. We've got long arms, and the ride quality, I mean, it is night and day, even on the road. No more hopping rear end. It rode stiff before. It rides like you're on a cloud now. So that is the wrap up on our stretch project.